Hey, this is Benjamin Boyce. This one feels like a bathrobe reading, but I'm already dressed, so we're just going to have to roll with it. I wanted to share with you a Twitter thread by Alyssa Rosenberg, who is an opinionator employed by the Washington Post, where democracy dies in darkness. Well, it's not only democracy, but actually clear thinking that also dies in darkness. I did a reading of the actual opinion article, but it doesn't have what I wanted to comment on. So what she basically does is she takes this movie that's causing a lot of stir. It's called Cuties, and it's about a troupe of 11-year-old girls who do a lot of twerking, and it actually has footage of young women grabbing their crotches and popping their booties. And what she tries to do in this opinion piece is to contextualize it as being against what it's depicting. It's not promoting the sexualization of minors. It's using the sexualization of minors to show how it's bad or how it happens, right? But the actual sexualization of the minors is in there, and she tries to, decontextualize it. And in the Twitter thread that she makes in order to promote her opinion piece, she takes some very interesting postmodern tacks on how to interpret this. And I wanted to show how that is rather hypocritical. It's absolutely thoroughly hypocritical. But because postmodernism erodes truth, there's no such thing as hypocrisy anymore. So let's dive into the reading of this Twitter thread. Two things are simultaneously true, Alyssa writes. Cuties depicts disturbing age-inappropriate behavior by young girls, and it unequivocally views that behavior as sad and harmful to the girls involved. Cuties also directly traces that behavior to the influence of social media and the way content algorithms drive consumers to more extreme content, as well as to the absence of strong parental influence. I'm so deeply disturbed by the charges that this movie is child pornography. Showing sexual images of children is not pornography if put in the correct context, when it is, among other things, an argument about the effect of near pornography on young girls. So if I went out and made a film of me tipping over cows, and it was actually in the context of trying to show how tipping over cows is harmful to the cows and to the ranchers involved with those cows, would that justify the cruelty to animals if it was against cruelty to animals? This is the postmodern trick. If you look at this in the right way, it's no longer what it is. If you look at this image of a young woman, a little girl, 11-year-old girl, grabbing her crotch with the eyes that it is against the depiction of that in a sexual manner, it's no longer sexualized. You can desexualize by decontextualize. You can make anything okay as long as you put the right brackets around it. You can also make anything bad if you put the right brackets around it. That's why this stuff about dog whistles, about alt-right dog whistles or like proto-fascist or crypto-fascist behavior that is slung at the conservatives works in their minds, because they are recontextualizing what the actual real argument is under their lens. This is the recipe for projection. It is, in effect, a mass psychosis where nobody can actually see the truth because we're all caught in interpretations of the truth. And then you just rely on your moral authority by saying that I am on the good team, I am not a conservative, therefore my morality and my moral justification of this actually holds more water than their morality and their condemnation of it. This is made a little bit more explicit later on down the thread. I'm so deeply disturbed by the charges that this movie is child pornography when it is, among other things, an argument about the effect of pornography on young girls. Saying otherwise isn't just a gross mischaracterization of the actual film itself. It's a really horrible thing to do to the director and to the excellent young actresses in it. Yeah, there is some blowback. I'm sorry, if you create a product, you are responsible for the product. It doesn't matter what your intent was. What matters is the impact Again, it's not a double standard when they do it because 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 to them. So therefore, there is no double standard if you reverse engineer that a little bit. You can definitely have an argument about whether some of the scenes that show child characters behaving in inappropriate ways are shot in ways that undermine the point. But the most notable one is also constantly intercut with expressions of concern, sadness, and even disgust. So what happens if somebody takes that clip and then edits out those expressions of concern, sadness, and even disgust? What if somebody just recontextualizes? They already have the footage that's explicitly sexual. The footage is already out there. So somebody can just take it out and then just take out those expressions of concern and you have another product. But what remains constant between either of those edits is the depictions of these young women acting sexually. You can't get away from that. That is the objective thing within the text, is that it is a sexual act performed by children. If you contextualize that as okay, according to her, it's okay. But what if you contextualize it as not okay? Then it's no longer okay, but it's still sexualization, no matter how you edit it. She continues, if conservatives who have jumped on the debate over Cuties want to be taken seriously as cultural arbiters, they have to be able to talk about the text of a movie like this in an honest, responsible way. This is the most dishonest, irresponsible sentence in this entire thread, which is what I wanted to get to. If conservatives, again, the outgroup, we're on the high ground. I am a liberal, or whatever she is. I'm a progressive. I'm on the high ground. Those conservatives over there, they have jumped into this discussion about Cuties, right? So they're appropriating the narrative. They're trying to control the narrative. But if they want to do that, if they want to be taken seriously as cultural arbiters, she is being a cultural arbiter right now. She's totally doing that. She's saying, this is what this text means, and any argument to the contrary is less than moral. It's dishonest and irresponsible. This is the most honest and responsible way to do it, which, as I've shown you, is dishonest and irresponsible because it's playing a bunch of sleights of hands. But she makes it explicit right here. If these conservatives want to be taken seriously as cultural arbiters, they have to be able to talk about the text of a movie like this in an honest, responsible way. What is the text? The text is whatever you make about it. It doesn't matter about intent. It matters about impact. She's completely caught off the rails right here because it doesn't matter the intent of this movie. At this point, it's the impact. And the impact is, we could talk about, like, how offended should we get about this? And I think that there are ways, and I've tried to. When this came up before, I did a couple attempts to try to contextualize it in a way that it wasn't completely based on outrage. But I had to give up on that because this stuff is absolutely toxic, right? So now I get to talk about her being stained by it. But there are different ranges of responses to this text. What she's trying to do is delegitimize it in the name of what? In the name of standing up, I suppose, like the strongest moral footing that she has is standing up for the director, standing up for the creative process. But she is failing to actually engage honestly with the moral character of those who are outraged by this, right? She's disregarding the morality of depicting, and this is the interesting thing, what is the morality of depicting a young woman who doesn't know that she's being sexual as sexual? Can these young girls actually have consent towards something that they don't actually know the content of? Do they actually understand that they're being sexual? Are they motivated by sexuality, or are they being put in this position without their awareness of being seen this way? And then if you contextualize it as bad, which the movie apparently tries to do, that still doesn't negate the fact that the act is there, that the depiction of the sexualization is there. If you cut it or filmed it differently than it was cut or filmed, then you can say that it was suggested. That would possibly spark enough disturbance in the audience to get the point across. But they went even further and showed the actual sexualization, the grabbing of the crotch on film and the popping of the booty, which is explicitly sexual, as we saw with the WAP video, which uses the same kind of body motions attached or performed by full-grown women. Anyways, she continues. And she kind of reiterates her moral authority by just writing, I'm just disgusted and sad. So she has such a moral indignation towards people who aren't reading this text correctly that she's disgusted by them and saddened and depressed. And then she plugs another review of Cuties. So there's different levels of discussion about this movie. Why are we reflexively acting negatively toward it? What is the actual content of the sexualization of young women? What is the process of becoming sexualized without your awareness of it? Does impact matter or does intent matter? And who gets to be the cultural arbiter? The person who is sad and disgusted the most by everybody else? Because everybody's sad and disgusted by this. You're sad and disgusted at the actual movie, or you're sad and disgusted at the people who are sad and disgusted by the actual movie. Who actually has the moral authority here? My contention is that the actual footage shows the sexualization of a minor who is not aware of the content of what they're doing as young women, and therefore cannot give valid consent to this. But that consent and that content is completely and thoroughly upset by this postmodern way of viewing things as texts. And it cuts both ways. The people who argue into okayness, the sexualization of young minors, will argue into moral abjecthood or fascism or Nazism, those who they disagree with. They will use that tool to create a reality that justifies whatever it is that they want to justify. But there's no arbiter of truth in this. There's only arbiters of texts, and it's all readings. And if you read it wrong, well, there's something wrong with you. It doesn't actually add up. It doesn't actually add up into something that we can build a harmonious society upon, because the very moral fabric that allows young people to gradually develop in their own terms into adulthood is absolutely shaken up and eroded by these sorts of justifications. There's no right and wrong anymore. There's just positions in the text. So that's my contention with it. Good luck to Alyssa Rosenberg in her forthcoming Ratio.